Fire Punch is the most insane manga I've ever read. Why? Well, in a post-apocalyptic world where everything is frozen and people are on the brink of freezing and starving to death, there are two siblings who are blessed ones with the ability to regenerate body parts, entire limbs and other injuries. These siblings settle in a small village in this cruel world and supply the people of this village by cutting off their own limbs again and again so that they can eat them, effectively turning these people into cannibals. At least their hearts are in the right place. This village finds a semblance of peace through these two until the soldiers of the Behemdolg Empire, I might just call it Behemdolg, stumble upon this village to find out what they've been up to. Amongst the soldiers there is a blessed one with the ability to shoot fire. Things start going bad when he decides to burn down the entire village, and doubly so when we find out that the fire neither disappears nor can be put out until it has burned down its target completely. You make the connection yet? Our protagonist, Agni, just a little boy at this time, gets caught in this fire and is being burned to death as his body keeps regenerating his injuries, him being in a constant state of one of the most painful ways to die, while he has to see his sister get incinerated, her last words telling him to live. Oh, and his sister wants to make babies because they should be repopulating the village. And if you think these are the reasons that this manga is completely crazy, you are in for a ride. This is just the beginning. But to truly understand how and where this insanity comes from, we ought to understand the insane personality behind Fire Punch. Tatsuki Fujimoto, the mangaka of Fire Punch and coincidentally Chainsaw Man, is a very confusing personality. This man operates on the principle of never let him know your next move. Why do I say this, I hear you asking? Well, let's take a look at some of the stuff this man is known to have done. Trying to levitate. Acting as his own little sister stuck in middle school on Twitter. Trying to bury his dead pet fish at command of his girlfriend, but then developing feelings of guilt when seeing ants feasting on the corpse of the fish and proceeding to eat that fish. You're gonna tell me this guy gets more game than I do? Also, he cosplayed as Makima and tried to levitate again. Now, I'm not the biggest manga reader, which is not to say that I haven't read my fair share of manga. What I find myself doing is always starting with the anime adaptation of a series to see if it's interesting to me, and then jumping to the manga to continue the story. So I went ahead and did just that with Chainsaw Man, one of the most hyped up anime and manga series of the past few years on social media, for its general insanity and notorious Chainsaw Man level pacing. After watching the first season of the anime, I had caught a glimpse of this pacing, so I latched onto the manga and binged through it in a single 8-hour reading session, and walked away with a little bit of eye strain, but also a feeling of mainly confusion and some sadness, I think. In retrospect, I find it pretty interesting that those were the exact same type of feelings I had when finishing Goodbye Eri and now also Fire Punch. However, it's this hypnotic Chainsaw Man level pacing, this continuous having the rug pulled out under you that made me engage with the works of Fujimoto. That way of writing and flipping your perspective of the story and its characters and playing with your expectations is present in each of those stories, so maybe Fujimoto level pacing is a more accurate name for that term really. I can't really explain what I mean without heavily spoiling the first half or so of the series. There will also be some very light spoilers for the latter half. I mean, I can hardly sell the series to you without some spoilers, so if you are in the middle of reading this manga or want to read it sometime in the future for yourself, this is probably where you should take your leave. I do appreciate you watching though. For example, in Fire Punch we go from our protagonist getting kidnapped and about to be killed, to introducing a character existing more or less solely for Fujimoto to use her as a proxy to profess his love for movies, to seeing a girl about to get assaulted, to that movie girl wanting to film the assault for her own movie, to her soloing the strongest people in the Behem army as she constantly spouts references to movies, to then needing to stop the train they are on before it derails, only for the next chapter to skip over the part where they stop the train, and then go through an existential crisis with our main character because the leader of said army looks eerily similar to his dead sister and is about to be killed in front of him. All of this happens in like the first 10 chapters of the story. See, what I mean is that whiplash doesn't begin to describe the style of writing this man employs. The tone has been smashed up, torn to bits, burnt to crisps and thrown into the wind. A random assortment of events happening back to back doesn't make a story instantly well-paced or exciting. It can be very exciting or very off-putting, depending on how things are strung together and the context of the events happening. It's a fine line that a story that chooses this style walks, because if it goes too far in either direction, it does so at the risk of coherency, I think. And it's this fine line that Fire Punch walks, this balancing act while juggling 6 balls and still managing to make me laugh, sometimes be sad and think about myself and our current world, with some not so subtle social commentary. And it's then that I understood that under this facade of insanity, at its core, this is a story about humanity. Not only is this best reflected in Fire Punch's main character of Agni, but also its fights. So when someone with the ability to control metal objects telepathically, who I've aptly dubbed Magneto, is put up against Agni to kill him, what he does isn't some elaborate crushing technique or anything of that sort like some would assume in a shonen manga where people have superhero-like abilities. What he does is fling a sharp metal object at Agni, lodge it into his body and lift him up to space where he will die in its vacuum. Agni's countermeasure? Ripping off his own head, throwing it down to the earth, regenerating off that head, then ripping out his arm, tossing it at Magneto to put him on the inextinguishable fire that he has on his body and burn him to death alive. Fights in Fire Punch aren't as technical or exciting as they are brutal, visceral and cathartic. This more grounded or realistic, for the lack of a better term, style of battles waged in Fire Punch makes sense in the context of this world and helps make it feel more believable. This is the post-apocalypse. There are not many people left who have knowledge of things like martial arts. They just hit and shoot each other. Or things like morality. They just indulge in whatever they want. Wait, what the fuck is this? You think this is how the government imagines the world if people didn't pay their taxes? What better way of telling a story about humanity than showing some of the sickest things it's capable of, but also some of the most beautiful and noble aspirations a person can have, as well as some of the biggest ways an individual can fall from grace. Our main character and the main character of this world, as Togata calls Agni, is someone who is leading a very shitty life, visibly. Constantly being on fire, constantly feeling that pain of the fire, not being able to sleep because of that fire, not being able to eat and enjoy anything because of that fire. That fire that is burning away at his sanity. The only thing he's holding on to is the last word of his sister and his lust for revenge on the one that caused it all, Doma. This is the initial driving factor of the story, Agni's want for revenge on Doma. So when he's at a crossroads and has the choice between pursuing the path of revenge and go off to kill Doma, or helping the enslaved people in the main capital of Behemdolg, and he chooses the latter over the former, it feels like a monumental triumph, like a moment of taking your own destiny into your own hands. Eventually, when Agni goes off to talk to Doma and put the entire thing behind him once and for all, and after seeing that Doma is a changed man, a man much wiser than he was when he did what he did to Agni and his sister, and is clearly regretful of his past, and Agni decides to walk away instead of completing his revenge, it feels like we witness someone become truly strong, overcome their past grudges, memories that keep them stuck in the past, and be inspiring in their actions. Which is why it's the biggest gut punch when you start reading the next chapter and see that in a single moment of weakness, Agni loses himself to his feelings and in a fit of blind rage, murders everyone. Doma and all the people he was taking care of, including the children. I guess this is one way to reference Star Wars. It's this layered nature most of Fire Punch's cast of characters have that make them interesting to watch into anything, basically. Take Judah, for example, Agni's sister Luna's lookalike. Forced to put on an act for the people of Behemdolk since she was a kid, deceiving everyone, including herself, to keep up an illusion of order in this world, her only defining emotion up until she lets it all go and wants to finally end herself after Behemdolk goes up in flames, being that she is emotionless, cold, calculating, and disconnected. Or Togata, who is this funny, twisted, scheming little chaos gremlin whose motivations you can kinda understand despite hating her guts. The characters of Fire Punch are multifaceted, just like real people are. Sometimes I do wonder if you can truly and fully understand someone, even if you have known them for decades. People can be someone with you, but be a completely different person with someone else. The actions they are going to take are dependent on so many different variables, and I think it's this that is beautifully reflected in the characters of Fire Punch, and especially Agni, who, after realizing what he has done, starts completely losing himself, questioning his entire life and his actions up to this point, and slowly spirals into madness in the second half of the series. This character, man, she wants to create and oversee a new civilization because she wants to watch a new Star Wars movie.